So I'd like to welcome you all today to this panel session. Previous today that we've been having an academic conference that's been exploring some of the best and most interesting recent academic research on the Chinese economy and how it's what the special challenges are in China and how they're similar and how they're distinct from challenges elsewhere around the world. And it's been a tremendously valuable learning experience so far, and we're very optimistic that will continue tomorrow. So this panel discussion today, I view as very important for the following reason. I'm an academic, but I think as an academic, I find it very useful to hear insights from people outside of academia, from the government, from the private sector, and I also have confidence that there's information sharing going the other direction as well. It's important for us to be working on problems that are really policy relevant and ones that take into account perspectives from the private sector. And so I'm looking forward to this panel as a way to kind of exchange ideas about how we can think more broadly about research as it connects to economics in China. So this event has been kind of co-organized by Tsinghua University as well as the Macroeconomy Research Program as part of the Becker Friedman Institute, and we've been and we're certainly appreciative of the funding coming from Harvest as well. So what I'd like to do without further delay is to introduce my distinguished panelists, and then we can get down to some questions. So let me start with Zhao Gang, former chairman of the Chinese Security and Regulatory Commission, who was previously chairman of the board of directors of the Bank of China Limited and of the Bank of China Hong Kong Limited, and deputy director of the People's Bank of China and the Central Bank of the People's Republic of China. Our second panelist is Shangping Xu. He's a professor of economics at Shinkan's Graduate School of Business, and is one of the first recipients of the China Economics Prize for contributions in understanding government and enterprise incentive mechanisms for the transition economy of China. So he's a very distinguished academic. He's previously taught at the London School of Economics at the University of Hong Kong and at Tsinghua. He was president of the Asian Law and Economics Association as well. Our next panelist is Thomas Sargent, one of the 2011 Nobel Prize in Economic Sciences. He's a well-recognized intellectual leader in the field of macroeconomics, including important work on monetary and fiscal economics, as well as macro time series. He holds joint appointments now at the New York University's College of Arts and Sciences and the Stern School of Business. He previously held chairs at the University of Chicago. He made a big mistake by leaving, but what can I do? And Stanford University and the University of Minnesota. For interestingly, he was a key member of my dissertation committee, so quite some time. He's the past president of the Econometric Society and the American Economic Association. And then finally, Henry Zhao. He's a PhD and chairman of the Harvest Fund. Mr. Zhao was the youngest head of the Chinese asset manager when he was first appointed chief executive of the Harvest Fund back in 2000. This fund has grown tremendously and become a truly very important enterprise in finance in China as well as around the world. He has worked in the financial industry over 21 years, 20 of it were at the management level. So I think you can see from these panelists, we have quite a wide set of backgrounds, and I think there's really scope here for some very interesting exchanges and discussions. The game plan here is the following. I'm going to start off by asking questions. I'm going to target some of these questions to particular panelists, but then let other ones chime in as they like, and then other questions will just be posed to whoever wants to answer them. So I'm going to start off with a question directed to Professor Sargent. The U.S. economy is in some ways more advanced, although the gap has been reduced, and in some ways seems quite distinct from the Chinese economy. However, presumably there are other lessons for other economies to be learned from experiences and problems encountered in the United States. So what do you see as the potential parallels between economies, and what can we learn by comparing and contrasting their economic performances?
Okay. Is this on?
Don't see it. Technology.
Thank you. Okay. So, actually, I think there's this is an old University of Chicago tradition. See, economics is not an experimental science. Actually, Bob Lucas said, you don't want your neighbors doing experiments on you. So how do you learn? So, well, there's cross-country differences. Some experiments, unintended experiments were done. So we have different kind of policy regimes. So you can look across countries. Like Lars has led a Becker Friedman Institute study of Latin America. And in many Latin American economies, their monetary and fiscal policy has been really bad in various ways. So that's too bad for them, but it's great for us as economic researchers. So we can learn from other countries. And okay, so to learn something, Lars is in the Becker Friedman Institute document. He's made his point. How can you learn from data? Well, just let the data speak for themselves. Well, if you try to let the data speak for themselves, they won't say anything. They're quiet. You need some prejudice or some model. Okay, so this morning and this afternoon there were 3 great talks, and I kept seeing that there were some key ideas. Actually, University of Chicago ideas coming through this. One is coast, and what's the boundary between a firm and a market, and then the other is the welfare theorems, which were actually first developed in the 30s at the University of Chicago. So what's the difference between a market economy and a command economy? Those things are connected. Which brings me to China first. So I'll just tell you 3 pillars, 3 pieces of economic advice. See if you know where they came from. So these are 3 targets that some very smart people put together about reform. And as I tell you the 3 targets, I want you to figure out whether they're good targets for the United States or good targets for China, and where that is. So here's the first one. Markets should play a decisive role in the allocation of resources. Number 2, there should be market-oriented interest rate liberalization. Number 3, we should eliminate all but natural monopolies. Well, how to give you the answer? That's from the 3rd party plenum in 2013 in China. That's the grand vision. Those are good things for any economy. So now let me come to the United States, and these are things which I think China can learn from the United States, and maybe this is a little bit like we can learn from Argentina. So here's the thing. I just want to tell you about 2 books to read. One is by Thomas Phillips. It's a new book, and it's called The Great Retreat. And it summarized some of his work, but work by a number of people, including at the University of Chicago. So the Great Retreat from what? From competition and markets in the United States. It's all about the United States. So this is very data-based, and he's describing how in the last 20 years, the following things have happened in the United States. And this is These are the data, and then you should interpret the data and try to figure out. First thing is, there's been an increase in concentration. A number of industries have become more and more concentrated. Large firms are, and that could be good or bad. That's the first thing. The second thing, there's been an increase in the profit share and a decrease in the labor share. Now, if you're an economist, or you think about those third plenum, you raise your ears. Increase in profit shares. I thought competition was supposed to drive profits down. And decrease in labor share. Another thing, there's been a decrease in investment in the United States across broad industries. There's been a decrease in productivity growth. And there's been a decrease in R&D investment. You could say this sounds really bad because lots of things are decreasing, but one thing's been increasing: lobbying. Lobbying corporations spending money to try to get the government to change things. So, and there's been an increase in probably in rent. So, I recommend reading Philip Holmes' book because he puts these things all together and he connects them. So he says that the United States, actually even vis-a-vis places like Europe, has become less competitive, partly as a consequence of some public policies. So what can be learned from that? It's kind of related to the third paper we heard today. So I guess I conclude by what can be learned. Well, Ann Krieger, one of the largest teachers and my colleagues at the University of Minnesota, she's the inventor of the term rent seeking, and she just wrote a very nice editorial, and it's a play on Make America Great. You heard that? She's commenting on the Trump administration's tariff policies, and her title of her article is Making America Mediocre.
Thank you. I'd like to turn next to Henry Zhao. What do you see as the most fundamental difference between the Chinese and U.S. capital markets, and how would it impact our research and investment methodologies?
Yeah, in the last 10 years, 20 years, we have a lot of colleagues from U.S. come to China. So I always ask one question to them. So, yeah, how do you think how do you think the U.S. market is going to, how you compare that with China? We ask opposite. Usually, the important to me is they think the U.S. market is a big ocean. China market is a small lake. So they can sail on big ocean, certainly they can sail on a small lake. But actually, this is, I think it's wrong. So to me, the impression is, you invest in U.S. capital markets more like you're working on daylight. And if you invest in China, it's more like night. So this is, means transparent. Yeah, and back to your question, I think U.S. is efficient market. This is back to your Chicago. Yeah, that's assumption that efficient market has. But China is not. China, all empirical study has shows it's weak, efficient, or non-efficient markets. So what's that mean, efficient or non-efficient? So efficient is the information. If a company announces disclose the information and every corner in this room gets the information at the same time, at the same quality, at the same intensity. And it's rare. But in China, things doesn't like that. When some company discloses, and then if you're close to that, and you get strong information, early information, and policy information. And even sometimes it's maybe you know this is a big information. So the way to invest in the two markets is different. Yeah, China market is more, the information is more like in the water you throw a stone is like universe. But US at the same time. So the way to invest is different. Yeah, you analyze a drop of water. It's okay enough. You quick and to get conclusion. China, you need to verify whether the information is right. You get high quality information. So you need fundamental, even independent research. Your investors need fundamental. So this is what I mean difference.
If I could just ask a quick follow-up to that. I think it's a very fascinating distinction which you're making. Even within the U.S., this efficient markets notion is challenged. I happen to share the Nobel Prize with two people that would get in great arguments about it. They would argue about it without ever defining what it meant exactly, which made it all the more peculiar. But the difference in what you're talking about the information revelation markets, it seems like a very important one. Do you think these financial markets in China develop over the course of the next 10 to 15 years? Do you expect this to change too, or do you?
Yeah. How I make this market is non-efficient. So I think you need to look at the rules, the regulation, how investors and the companies, holistics, how they play the game. So the game, whether this is a fair game, whether this is a good game. So I think this relates to policy maker and the regulators. This is one thing. Another thing is who the listing company, who is the cornerstone of these markets. So whether they play in the right way, whether they follow the rules. The third thing is who do investment. And the fourth thing is intermediaries, investment bankers, advisories, all kinds of rating companies. So all these systems each time, I think China will evolve, especially in the open to the outside world, when more global player. This is only changing the players, but regulation, policy, and the framework of game, and also the listing company and the intermediary and the retail, all these have impact. So I think it will take time. Maybe I think optimistic, maybe 10, 20 years.
Very interesting. I'd like to direct the next question, which is related to this actually, to Xiaobang. Financial markets are nascent in China relative to Europe and the USA. Financial market fluctuations in the recent past have been caused for concern by the government. When markets are new, we expect there to be some form of learning by doing. This is especially true because financial markets are thought to be forward-looking and sometimes bear bad news and get blamed for things, perhaps at times inappropriately. What do you see as productive roles for government oversight in financial markets in China?
我觉得中国政府的这个监管的角色很重要的一条是要理清监管的边界。因为监管的目标应该是维护市场的公开、公平和公正。那么不能过多的去干预市场主体的这个活动。那么它主要是依法制定规则，维护公平公正的这么一个秩序。特别是要这个严惩这个违法违规的行为，使得这个市场这个更加公平透明。它的职责呢，应该更多的放在保护投资者的这个利益。我们国家这个监管，我认为呢需要进一步的理清这个边界，不能让监管部门承担过多的职责，所以 这个政府的监管在这个要在市场上发挥好的建设性的作用，我觉得这一点是需要这个注意的。我想举一个例子来说明这个边界的划分，很不容易，因为你这个边界到底怎么画怎么做比较好？那我就举一个市场这个股票市场的一个例子来说明这个边界。那么股票发行的注册制，就是来解决这个既要发挥监管部门的建设性作用，同时又尊重市场主体的这样一个原则。那么大家都知道，股票发行注册制，简单说就是发行股票都是要经过审核的，经过证券监管部门审核的，在美国也是经过 SEC 来审核的。但是这种审核是要以信息披露为中心，也就是说，这个监管部门在审核这个股票发行的时候，他是把这个企业要不要发行股票，什么时候发行股票，和以什么样的价格来发行股票，这些权利是认为是企业的这个天然的权利。但是你又要经过我的审核，因为你股票发行是涉及到公众利益，那么又要经过我审核，那我审核的原则是以信息披露为中心。也就是说，你不管怎么样，你得把你的信息真实、完整、准确的给披露出来，这就是我们监管部门的责任。所以在这样的一个股票注册制，它的一个巧妙的地方，巧妙之处，就在于呢，它既这个使得监管部门有发挥建设性作用的这个时候你必须要到我这来经过审核，同时它又避免了我简单的干预你你发不发是由我监管部门来决定这样一种这个边界，又规范了这个监管部门的边界。所以股票注册制发行的注册制这样一件事情，很好的诠释了这个监管的建设性的作用和规范了监管的边界。所以我觉得这个在中国这个资本市场方面，这个监管发挥监管建设性的作用这是一条很重要的经验。
Thank you. So let me turn to Jianken Chu. Relative to other economies, the household consumption relative to output has been historically low. Do you see this trend as continuing in the future? What impact will this have on the growth in China?
If we compare the household income share of GDP or household consumption share of GDP, then we find that China is substantially below the average when compared with the rest of the world. So, for example, the world household consumption share of GDP is well above 60%. Only the super rich nations have a share below 50%. But the Chinese household consumption share of GDP is well below 30%. By other researchers, it's between 33% to 36%. So it's well below, far below the world average. The reason this consumption share of the GDP is so low is because of the low household share of GDP. But we don't have good numbers of that. But we do know that household saving has declined in recent decades. And also we know that household debt, particularly the mortgage, is nearly 60% of GDP. And the reason the household share, the income share of GDP is very low is due to the government share of national income is far too high. So the government share, government revenue has been increasing for a quarter of a century, increasing higher every year. The increasing rate is higher than the GDP growth rate. Moreover, the government revenue is not only according to the official statistics, is more than actually the tax revenue. So all the land revenues are not counted into that. So the land revenue has been really increasing a lot. But these, in my view, these are extremely difficult to change because of the institutional problems. And then consequently, so then here we face this extremely high pressures on China's economic growth. So the slowing down, so one of the major factors leading to the slowing down is the low domestic demand. And the reason is simple is because in the past, the Chinese when China enjoyed a very high growth rate, it was mainly exporting driven. But given the size of China, China had already been the largest exporter, and given the size, it's just impossible for China to rely on further expanding export. So then the domestic demand is the key. So then when China has been facing this pressure, then the physical stimulus came in. But the physical stimulus could work only for a very short period of time. So for long run, it's just impossible. And that is another reason that China is running into troubles in the sense of the debt. So nowadays, if we look at the total debt over GDP ratio, China is something like 320%. And this number may not be terribly high, but here comparing with the United States and Japan may not be terribly high, but here the key is that it's still increasing very rapidly, and also the nature of the debt is different. So the nature of the debt, a very large part of the debt, these are the mortgages. So if we remember what happened in the subprime mortgage crisis, here we see the danger. So a huge proportion of these debts are mortgages. So some are mortgage using land as a collateral, some using stock as a collateral. So then these are pro-cyclical. So when growth rate is down, then the market is bad, and then the banks are in trouble. And then I also like to come back to the issue Chairman Xiao just mentioned about financial regulation. So here, actually, in China, we have a serious problem in the financial market in the sense that supposedly in a well-functioning financial market, in our terminology, these firms should be in hard budget constraints, in the sense that if a firm becomes insolvent, then the stock value should, the prices should drop, and the firm eventually go bankruptcy. But in China, we don't really have this. So particularly those formal state-owned firms listed in the market, so then they are not subjecting to the hard budget constraint. So then we have a quite overwhelming phenomenon of this soft budget constraint in those listed state-owned firms. But once we have soft budget constraints in the stock market, then the market information is distorted, and the incentives are distorted. And then we have huge burdens to the regulators. And moreover, I fully agree with all Chairman Xiao just talked about the function of the financial regulation, but I want to add just one more point. So because the Chinese financial market, including the financial regulation, all of these are learned from Hong Kong. So it's a sort of duplication of Hong Kong model, and Hong Kong learned from the United States. So this is essentially a US model. Right? So before 1933, 1934, there was no regulation whatsoever state regulation in the NYSE. So this is an invention. So financial regulation is an invention of the United States. So then we have to look at where the invention comes from. So this invention is based upon the common law, based upon the independent judiciary system. China learned everything but the common law and judicial independence. Of course, changing the law into common law is almost impossible, but at least judicial independence is the key, because the so-called financial regulation is just a kind of supplementary law enforcement institution. But really the core law enforcement institution is the independent judicial system. So without that, it's extremely hard for the regulators to do the job.
It's interesting. So one thing you mentioned was about this hard versus soft budget constraint, and maybe coming back to the perspective that Tom Sargent was sharing with us. I worry about the soft budget constraint being permanent even in the U.S. these days. Post-financial regulation, we've got large-scale financial institutions, and this concern about too big to fail seems to be probably still on the table. So this issue of soft budget constraints may plague the U.S. going forward too. But we'll see how that plays out. So let me kind of lead into the next one. So I think we've already touched upon this subject, but I'd be anxious to see if people would like to elaborate even more on it. So this is open for all of you for sure. Growth in China has been truly remarkable in the past. It would be surprising, at least for me, to see this same growth continue in the future. It'd be a lot to ask. But what do you see as for the future growth of China, both short-term and long-term? And what do you see as the institutional changes in financing new ventures in China? So we think about new ventures as being an important engine of growth and the like. What do you see as kind of productive ways to support the financing of this? Anyone would like to contribute and answer, I'd be happy to hear it.
This is bad. I can't figure out how to turn on the microphone. You're asking me for China's growth. So I want to pick up on the last thing you said, which is fascinating to me, about where financial regulations came from. And you mentioned a common law. Okay, so this gets at a question which interacts with Lars. So where did the common law come from? So there's a book, one of the key books written by common law is by Oliver Wellman Holmes Jr., the Supreme Court Justice. And so you want to get a theory of common law. So his theory was it evolved out of hundreds of years of experience in a certain environment, mainly like in the British economy a long time ago. And it evolved out of test cases where judges are deciding things kind of on the fly, and then ideas kind of get, so it's a very slow evolutionary process. And now, okay, some of our colleagues, the largest colleague, Roger Myerson, he loves history, but he also studies institutions, and he does optimal mechanism design, like from the beginning, right down the journey, and just derive what the best set of institutions are. And Oliver Wendell Holmes said that's kind of like crazy, because that's not how things happen. They happen like Michael Somm's papers, evolution and hill climbing, and do they end up at the same place? And the reason I'm mentioning this is the kind of core. When you do something like China did 40 years ago and say we're going to open up and try something new, what do? Because you don't want to. Okay, so now the question is, you don't just evolve, but your question. So if you take something from abroad, how do you know it fits? And I think that's why people talk about. They said market economy or socialist economy in China's characteristics. That's somehow acknowledging it, but so. I think you raised a really, really important set of issues that are classic issues that you're kind of watching in real time in China. And now, instead of answering less questions, I'm going to try to figure out how to turn this thing off.
So I could go back to my question, or else we could talk about other stuff.
Can I say something?
Please.
So some academics have research to research on why China keeping growth the last 30, 40 years. So they have very clear conclusion. It's Great Revolution. All the changing, all the reform from the big parts in economy. Yeah, 乡镇企业 and the 承包制, the small business. All the change in reform. Actually, the reform actually have no direction. It's in terms of saying order should go for pass the river by cashless governance. So this is very key conclusion. And another conclusion is second best revolution. It doesn't mean everything is targeting to be the best. It's all by trying. So I think this is why China in the last 30, 40 years will change. Yeah, it means you energize entrepreneurs instead of central control. Instead of central planning. So I think this is a very clear path. So I think today we might go not in the as we used to be. So now, why don't we really believe on the markets really to do resource allocation? So market policy. So I think this is, if for long term, and also to Professor Xu just mentioned that the consumption is so low. So I really very not optimistic like this.
And just to follow this up. Because this household income share of GDP is so low, leading to a very low domestic demand. So under that kind of situation, it's just not possible for the growth being picked up. Actually, if we want to look at the lessons, we do have lessons. Soviet Union enjoyed a very high growth rate, and Paul Samuelson made huge mistakes by predicting that the Soviet Union is going to surpass the United States. So he made not just a mistake once, he made a mistake twice, 3 times, and put the mistake on the cover of his economics textbook. The reason he made a mistake is because indeed the Soviet Union used to have a very high growth rate. But then what happened? What happened? The very simple story is that their domestic demand is terribly low. So when they have a terribly low domestic demand, then whatever they do, they tried to reform, they tried very hard, and not only Soviet Union, the whole Eastern Bloc they share the same features. So when they have the very low domestic demands, then there's no way for them to pick up to make the growth rate grow again. So then actually we are running into a similar situation. Although in terms of firms, the Chinese firms are different. So we have the loss of the private firms. But as long as there is no domestic demand, as long as the domestic demand is low, then there's no way for the growth is going to grow.
So let me turn to something that's a little bit distinct, but also view as a very important contributor to growth, and that is finance. And so new enterprises, they're an important source of finance. What do you see as the most important? What do you see as the most important funding sources in the future? Of course, China, I think, has attempted to rely on state-owned banking sector, which I think has not been perhaps so successful at this. On the other hand, China's been a leader in kind of whole fintech and kind of opening up, broadly speaking, possibilities for exchanging financial resources. So, kind of, what do you see as the most important funding sources? What do you see as the potential obstacles? I'd be really pleased to hear insights on that subject.
我很荣幸有这个机会，我想回答这个问题。这个跟前面几位教授都讲到中国经济为什么发展这么快。如果从融资角度来看，我认为土地融资就是依靠土地来完成了我们这个资本的原始积累，促进经济发展、快速发展，起了很重要的作用。大家都知道，我们在计划经济的时代。改革开放以前，主要是财政资金，这是非常有限的。以后呢，这个发挥银行的作用，因为这个农民有钱了，工人这个企业这个自主权也扩大以后，他们的资金都存在银行，所以客观上要求就发挥银行的这个作用。因此呢，银行的这个信贷快速增长，但是增长到一定阶段，债务率非常高。所以中国应该说在40年改革开放经济发展这么快，很大程度上依靠土地。那中国的土地有特殊性，中国的土地是国有的。那么中国的创造力在于把土地的所有权、使用权、承包权把它分离，因此把土地的资金充分利用起来，加快了我们国家的工业化的进程。和城镇化的进程，这个是如果从融资角度来分析，这40年为什么快速增长，这是一个很重要的这个渠道。那么从未来来讲，这个我们的土地的融资也到了极限了，也到了遇到这个瓶颈了。所以未来的经济的发展应该是以新经济为主体，数字经济为主体的这种新经济的发展。那么这个融资我个人认为要更多的依靠多层次的资本市场。为什么叫多层次？那也就是说，因为多层次我知道这是我们中国的一个语境，这是特有的一种说法。国外就是资本市场，就是一种长期的资本市场。那么这个我们讲多层次，就是要从这个天使投资开始说起。中国缺乏天使投资。当然，我们的 PE、VC 也发展的，这几年有发展但是呢，发展的也还不是那么好。虽然有数量较多的PE 和 VC 的机构，但是他们很多不是做股权投资，相当多一部分还是做二级市场的这个证券投资。那么真正做股权投资的并不多。那么即使在股权投资当中，做股权投资当中，很大一部分也是做 pre-IPO， 就是很快能看上这个企业要做 IPO 了，他才去投一下股权投资。所以真正的做股权投资的这个PE 和 VC 还不够。所以我想，这多层次首先从这个层次就要大力的发展。其次呢，我们有很多的这个中小企业的这个市场。比如说我们现在的 这个叫全国中小企业的市场，我们俗称叫商满市场。这个现在有大量的这个中小企业应该要得到发展。然后当然要改革我们的这个交易所市场就是我们的股票市场比如说我们增加科创板等等。那这些措施都是有利于发展资本市场的。所以我觉得下一步要发展新经济，新技术也必然遇到新的风险。那这样一定要形成一个投融资双方共担风险共享收益的这样一种融资模式，那就是靠资本市场。所以我认为解决未来新经济发展的趋势不是更多的靠银行，而是要更多的靠资本市场。
Just a minute, I would just make a minor interruption. So I'm going to reserve a few minutes at the end of this panel for some audience questions. If you would write questions on a sheet of paper, someone will come and collect them, and we will have time for a few questions from the audience. Would you like to follow up?
Just a comment on your question.
Okay.
No, seriously. Seriously, it's a great question. And the thing is, so this is my own problem. So the question is about kind of the role of finance in the international economic growth. And I'm just going to mention two lines of research that are connected. One is pure theory. A lot of it comes from Chicago. One is Bigliani Miller, okay, and Barrow Ricardi equivalents. And the spirit of those things is lots of things that seem to be superficially different are actually occurring. That the institutional details are a sideshow. And institutional details would be, is it banks that does it, or does it seem to be the government, or if you penetrate through it. So they have these neutrality theories. Okay, so that's one. Now, another line which is not based on any, the authors, Alexander Gershengorn, distinguished economic historian at Harvard, who was last week, he wrote this famous book called Economic Backwardness and Economic Growth. So here was his line. It's purely empirical. He looks at England and he says, how did they grow? They had capital markets. They were early, England grew because it had capital markets. Now they go first. Then he goes to Germany. They don't have capital markets. So instead, it's like Michael's talking today. They have banks with interlocking directorates, who have, they're merged with firms, and it's the same guys are on the boards of directors of the banks and the firms, and that's how they fast forward. They don't have capital markets. They circumvent the capital markets. Okay? It's all done inside of the banks. And now, Gershengorn was Russian. He goes to Russia, and this is before the October Revolution. And how do they grow? Well, they don't have banks, and they don't have a capital market. So what do? They have a government. And what's the government doing? So think with England and Miller. What the government's doing is it's buying real stuff. It's taxing people, but it's not doing welfare programs. It's buying real stuff, and that's how they fast forward. If you kind of look at it, I guess the line is, what makes you think is sometimes the line between these institutions, because what they're doing is kind of fragile. It matters a lot. And a couple of the papers we heard today were, it matter a lot in terms of like the details, but does it really, the first order question is, does it really affect, the growth rate when we go from there?
So if I could defend my question and then we can go a little bit further.
I have to follow this. Great. It's a great subject to discuss.
Please.
So if we look at things in a very rough way, then yes, these are equivalent. In particular, for the backward nations trying to catch up. So when they try to catch up, because they know the target, And also they can learn the technology, they can learn the management, they learn the business model, so on and so forth. So then the only thing lacking is resources. So then if you have a government or a bank to mobilize the resources, then that's it. So then you have a very fast growth. But then if you go further, then here we run into troubles. So that's why Soviet Union run into troubles. And also, if we look at where the technologies come from, so at least in the recent 70 years, you'll find almost all of those breakthroughs were financed by venture capitalists. So here, yeah, so the reason these are financed by venture capitalists is because these particular type of institutions are going to take care of the incentive problems. So once we are on the frontier, then we have to take care of these things. But if we are not on the frontier, just catching up, so then mobilizing resources will be good.
Yeah. Please.
I think Professor said a very good framework. So actually, I see from another angle. If you using the government to support the capital accumulation, and then who suffer? Actually, the people. And government try to get more resources into the companies. And what are the benefits in whether the welfare rate can come back? And the second, Friedman model, and who benefits? Actually, it's the German model. The model is actually the banks on their benefits. It's the same case in China today. If you look at the 4 big banks in China, they have huge profit. Yeah, the capital market model. Actually, who benefits? People who invest. It's a share. It's have incentive. Can sustain it. So this is my another angle for you.
Interesting. Okay. It was always my understanding of Modigliani Miller was that was a very special result that set a benchmark so we can understand how finance work by seeing how we can push away from a particular Miller outcome. And so I agree it's good to keep that on the back of our mind, but since it was that's a great way to set up the question I was going to ask. I appreciate it.
Limit the risks.
So let me turn to a related subject. But, so the Chinese stock market is opening up to allow for broader participation, including the effort of Stock Connect to bridge Hong Kong and Shanghai and the granting of direct access to foreign financial institutions. How do you see this expanded participation playing out in the future? And what do you see it being successful for, or what ways do you see it being successful for broadening the reach of equity markets in China?
中国股市啊是应该对外开放。我们这个公司的目标呢，就是来促进中国股市的市场化、法治化和国际化。那么近10多年呢，中国的股市就对外开放，但是是一个渐进的过程，逐步的开放。10多年前我们开始搞 Q 费，后面也有搞 RQ 费。那么近几年呢，又开通了这个沪港通、深港通，还有沪伦通就上海和伦敦交易所的合作，以及这个上海和东京交易所的合作等等。那么从10多年的这个开放的实际的情况来看，这个外国投资者进入中国股市啊，给我们股市带来很多的积极的效益。比如说外国资金进来大多是长期资金，因为他们都是养老金、 大学的捐赠基金等等它们是长期这个基金，所以它们带来了一个价值投资的理念。所以我们分析过这个外资投资中国股市的行为，这个历年的数据，他们这个买卖的这个交易的数据的分析，他们的投资的行为和理念与中国的散户市场的，就是散户投资者的行为和理念正好相反，正好相反。那就是说，我们的这个散户投资者呢是追涨杀跌，就是股票涨的时候呢，他就要更多的买，追涨；如果股票跌的时候呢，他要出货，要卖。那么这国外的这个投资者总体的行为描述正好相反，就当你股价在涨的时候，特别涨得比较快的时候，他应该要卖，他要离开。那么股价低的时候，他要买。今年又是进一步证明，今年以来这个中国的 A 股市场是在下跌的，但是外资是持续的进入，持续的流入，所以这个行为呢，我觉得这个引进外资到中国股市来，是有利于改变我们的投资者的结构和投资的理念。我觉得这个积极作用是很重要的。当然，这个目前的外资这个流入到中国股市占的比重还很低，现在占3%左右，3%左右就占了我们整个可流通的这个股票的3%左右，这还是比较低的。这个比例我也查过，和发达国家不好比，那这个差得很远。那就是即使和发展中国家，比如说印度、巴西等这些新兴市场经济体，我们也是低的，我们也是偏低的。所以呢，进一步的开放外资到中国的股市，还有很大的空间，还有很大的潜力，而且必将发挥积极的作用。但同时呢，随着外资的增加，进来的增加，也会对我们市场呢带来新的挑战。我认为这个挑战主要表现为这个对市场波动性的影响会加大。因为外国投资者他到中国来投资股票，不仅受中国国内的经济、金融的形势的变化的影响，他也会受到国际的，因为他是来自国际的，受到他所在国家的这个经济、金融和有关政策的这个诸多政策的这个影响。所以这样的话呢，使这个中国的市场会更多的和国际市场紧密的联系起来，这样呢势必会带来这个更大的波动性。好在中国的市场在原来没有怎么开放的时候，我们本身波动也大，所以到时候呢，这个我们有这种抵御这个市场波动的这个风险的能力。这是我的看法。
So let me turn to a rather different subject. So like around the world there's been increasing concerns of things like the environment and climate change and how the human input on the environment is something which we ought to have a big role on. Of course, we also know that in some big cities in China, air pollution has been a non-trivial issue as well. How do you see environmental concerns playing out in the Chinese economy? What do you see as this potential impact, both in terms of its future growth of China and the governmental policy?
"中国在应对全球气候变化这个方面有一个重大的转变，那就是原来我们这个在全球范围讨论这个气候变化和生态安全这个问题上，我们总认为，这个因为中国是个发展中国家，我们要发展，所以就顾不得那个，比如说减排这些问题， 这是原来一个老的观念。而这个在国际上讨论这些问题的时候，我们往往把西方国家提出来对中国要求减排的这个要求的时候，我们往往从这个阴谋论来看待就是说这个西方国家想合作，这是这是，所以呢，这个中国的这个过去的战略总是一种被动的防御比如说我们总是要跟西方国家做斗争你想的是我就是要减排，我就不减排我就不减排所以多年来我们不肯承诺我们减排的峰值在哪一年这是过去做的。那么现在中国做了一个很重要的战略的转变，就不再作为把这个减排的问题看作是一个阴谋论而是我们从被动的防御性的战略转变为一个主动引领的战略。那也就是说，环境保护、气候变化、生态安全本身是我中国国内发展的迫切的需要那么由过去我们力争总是争取所谓我们中国的发展空间，现在到我们主动的引领，加快绿色发展那只有绿色发展才是高质量的发展因为我们不追求那个高的经济增长速度，而是要高质量而且要树立中国负责任的一个大国的形象在国际上所以这一点发生非常大的变化，是在这个应对全球气候变化和生态安全这个问题上。正因为这样一个变化，使得我们很多的这个措施就随着这个战略转变跟进了。比如说，中国率先确定了峰值的年限，就是我们要达标达峰值，而且在巴黎这个协定上我们是承诺的宣布了中国的峰值达峰的这个年限而且明确承诺我们还要提前，要争取提前。再比如中国是发展中国家，按照巴黎协定，这个是只有发达国家才这个要出资来资助这个欠发达国家的环境保护和生态安全的这个问题，这个一些设施的建设。那中国作为发展中国家，也在这个方面虽然不是发达国家，也美国总统认为中国已经是发达国家，这个我们有承认，我们还是发展中国家。在许教授也说，我们户均的家庭的这个平均的人均 GDP 还很低等等这个就不讨论。我们中国确实是发展中国家，还有很多穷人还是很多方面还是欠发达但是呢，中国愿意在应对全球气候变化这个方面、环境治理方面做出我们应有的这个贡献所以这个我觉得是非常的这个积极的这个态度而且呢不仅是这个对全球负责而且更重要的是对我们自己国内的负责。这个我们必须要建立一个高质量发展这样的一个路径所以就必须要把绿色发展放在一个非常重要的位置。所以我认为中国的未来的发展的取向是不会牺牲环境来求得我们过去所谓的较快的经济增长而是要坚持这个绿色的发展。
Anyone else want to comment?
Okay, so there's room for accounting. The GDP accounts do a good job about some things, but they don't measure something's progress. So James Tobin and Bill Nordhaus were talking about this 30 years ago, sort of trying to reform the accounts so they properly measure economic growth, taking into account stuff that the economy produces that's negative in value and is not properly accounted. And I think this is a place where every country could make a contribution in terms of how things are measured and taxed. And at least one, I'll just leave it at that. And this business about some political leaders saying global warming and climate change is a conspiracy that foreign countries are trying to put on us, that's not limited to China. So, we kind of climate change denial is not just there's people in my country.
Environment protection is a benefits or is a cost. So from the capital markets, actually reason why some research, and also we see compared to the CSS 300, the core index of the Chinese markets, and then we see we join with some index company to make ESG CSI 300. And guess what's the result? Will that beat the benchmark? Yes. It's a big benchmark and very good performance. So actually, YEE is ecological, S is social responsibility, G is corporate governance. Yeah, so I think today pushing by the central bank, green bonds or these kind of things, and also by some international requirements, especially the sovereign response for SMEs. So they push, and then we already see actually long-term thinking actually have benefits. Yeah. So already show 2 years track record, big benchmark, more than 3%. So I think it is evidence. It's not only about us.
So if I could just follow up a little bit on this, one of the challenges I think that the sphere is, yes, lots of people want to invest in green technologies and ones that we think will not be so harmful on the environment. But the kind of which ones are actually the most productive ones and which ones are kind of resource wasteful. There's been lots of backtracking like this in terms of looking at these potential technological solutions to things. So how do we best green? What's the role of government for this? Can governments really be the right people to assess what the best investment opportunities are in terms of green technology, or is this something which we really need to rely on entrepreneurial expertise as well to figure out how to do this in a sensible way? I find this is a very important challenge for the U.S., but I guess it also carries over to other economies as well. So we would have a perspective on this.
Okay, so it could be both. So just thinking out of the box. Remember that the problem with measuring longitude and how that was done? Somebody made a prize. I don't even know whether it's a government prize or not. They said a prize to find some well-defined goal.
Yeah.
And somebody put up the money. That could be the government or some benefactor. And then let the market, scientists compete for the prize. Maybe that's happening. I've been to science conferences where some physicists talk about how various parts of China are very creative in storing energy. Storing wind energy and by pumping water uphill and then storing it so it will release later. I think there's lots of reward for it.
Yeah, I guess this involves many different dimensions. So one dimension is more related to dealing with externalities, and the other dimension is technology. So particularly when it involves technology on the frontier, I'm very suspicious about how far the government can go. Because once it involves technologies on the frontier, these are actually unknown. For unknown things, if government involves deeply, for example, providing subsidies, huge amount of subsidies, these are going to distort the competition in technology. And then you may not end up with better technology, but instead you just end up with lots of distortions and subsidies and so on and so forth. So a much smarter schemes should be invented that the market competition for technologies on the frontier is the essential. Otherwise, depending upon government subsidies, one thing for sure is that we are not going to get the best technology.
我接着这个许教授，我很赞同他的这一观点。因为我举一个例子来说明这个环境保护的技术，这个垃圾发电在中国，因为有政府补贴的，这是对的啊，政府补贴这个垃圾发电，国际垃圾发电，但是相当多的一批企业是亏损的，由于它的技术不是真正的先进。那么前不久呢，我就到了一个这个专门回来创业，在国外学习，专门干这一行的垃圾发电的，然后他回国创业，创办了一个垃圾发电的一个企业，效益就比较好，因为它的技术真正先进啊。比如说其他垃圾发电最好是垃圾要分类，这样有利于发电的功率，发电的效率会好。但是它的这个技术可以不分类。你垃圾都什么垃圾混到一起都可以进来，那这样成本就减少很多。但是呢，发电的效率不受影响，所以这样的技术是真正的新的技术，它在市场上就有竞争能力，不需要靠政府补贴，而且它能够盈利，那就自然可以赚钱以后还可以投入研发，再进一步的发展。所以我很follow这个许教授的这个评价，就是说真正的技术最终还是要由市场来解决。
Yeah.
I mostly agree with this, but I think there's counterexamples. There's outstanding, there's about there's spectacular counterexamples. So like technologies that were invented through concentrating government research, some good and bad. So during World War II, the nuclear era, a spectacular example. In the information theory and decoding and encoding, beginning of information theories, paid for by the British government also, the U.S. government. And that opened the door to lots of things. The U.S. space program, the U.S. program that detected gravity waves. That was a really expensive thing. It's going to happen. That wasn't going to be done by the market. So there are things like that. And I see these University of Chicago guys looking at me. I like markets. I'll be quiet. I won't say more.
So let me turn to a couple of the audience questions before we wrap up here. This should be a really easy one. What will be the influence of U.S.-China trade disputes on corporate financing? What are the effects of trade dispute on the Chinese economy more broadly? 30-second answer, right? Who'd like to go first? Who'd like to go second? Okay, please.
Okay, so the U.S. trade negotiators should go read the chapter on international trade, Milton Friedman's Capitalism and Trade.
Okay. So now we understand how the Chinese response to this is good. Okay. Any other panelists want to comment on this? No?
Yeah, I think the tree wall, actually, the wall itself, is not the targets, I think. Yeah, the thing is, why tree wall? What problem we want to solve? So the problem is want to solve is from data color comparative advantage, and these all tree actually can benefit all social welfare. But on the way to improve, but not everyone improve. So the problem is how to solve this inequality. So that's the problem. Why not the tree wall can really solve this? I think I still quite doubt about it. So the concern, I think, even to come to China, some impact, but is not the thing. The thing is the psychological impact and the following walls. So I think that will be the issue.
So let me try another one. In many economies like the U.S., there's been a lot of discussions around economic inequality. Do you see inequality as a concern as China continues to grow?
The inequality issue is a huge one. So if we only focusing on the issue about the Chinese, not only the inequality but the growth rate. When I talk about the low domestic demand, one of the very big contributors to this is the inequality. So here, many, including Chinese or non-Chinese, there is a misperception about how rich the Chinese are. Here we are talking about the 1.4 billion population, and we may have 100 million people who are rich, but still we have essentially we have 1 million people who are poor. So if we want to have a growth, this inequality issue is a very serious matter to be handled.
Yeah, I thought Kuznets showed that inequality during growing economies was a U-curve. It went up at first, and then it came down. And that was true in the U.S. Probably true in China too. But I'm an optimist.
Okay. So I would like to thank the panelists for some very stimulating discussions. I think we've really touched on some very, very important questions, and there's some new insights that have been brought to bear, and I really appreciate that. And I've also been moderator of several panels, and often what panelists will do is when you ask them a question, they'll answer a different one they prefer to talk about. But I want to compliment my poor panelists to actually stay on target today, which is somewhat rare, but I'll be most appreciated. I really do appreciate the comments from all of my guests. It's been a very fun and also very educational exchange here. And so if we give all four panelists a round of applause, I really appreciate it.